want to focus, as always, the start of the show, on what should be a little bit higher in the news, but it isn't because there's not as many people who live there. But there will be a consequence to the economy. But more importantly, there are our fellow Australians that are suffering right now. These floods that are in and around Queensland, they are mega. They are absolutely mega. The area of this thing is now apparently the best part of 3,000 kilometres. It is the size of Victoria and then some. This thing is huge. And there are huge communities, industries that are being affected as we speak. Here's the latest from Sky News Weather.
Now, major flood warnings are current for the river catchments shaded in red. This still includes the Barcoo, Thompson and Cooper Creek river catchments, the Bullu River and the Paru River. There are concerns of overnight major flooding occurring along the Thompson River at Longreach.
As for the locals, here's the mayor.
A lot of helicopters in the area and they're trying to assess stock losses. We have fodder available to drop, but you have to find a dry area, to drop the fodder for the stock. So it's very difficult.
And about that, about 100,000 head may well have been drowned or are missing right now as a result of these floods. There is a serious consequence to our food supply when that many die or go missing. This thing is absolutely huge. A local vet was talking to us a bit earlier today about this very issue.
We think that there's been at least 10,000 cattle lost. Individual farms, we think, have losses anywhere from 50 to 90%. The occasional farm has lost every single animal on their place. All cattle and horses are gone.
Absolutely terrible. This is not just about those livestock, but it is, of course, about their businesses, their farms. People may well have been just holding on to be wiped out like this. It is a massive, massive story, and there's a huge number of Australians who really are doing it tough right now. The information that we are getting is that, sadly, more rain to come over the next couple of days. Why? Because, of course, the former ex-tropical cyclone, well, it was coming in from the east. This one is coming in from the west.
Widespread rain accumulations over the next 24 hours look to broadly exceed 25 to 50 millimetres. So this could result in some renewed river rises in the state's west. There are growing concerns, though, that other areas could see flooding. Therefore, flood watches are now current for southern inland and southeast coastal rivers of Queensland.
Now, as I love to say, humans are awesome, and there are stories of incredible things that have taken place as a result of this as people help each other out. Now, there is an organisation that we actually spent some time with on Saturday in Toowoomba, and that is Life Flight. These are people who go deep into the bush to pick people up off the side of the roads, to bring people in from their properties. It's basically sort of like a floating emergency room. And they have been involved in many a rescue, including this one that was in the newspapers today, that a man was lost for 2 days in floodwater in Western Queensland after his four-wheel drive became bogged. And he's been dramatically rescued after building himself a makeshift shelter, and he wrote the word help in the mud with a stick. Think about that. He was found after walking 60 kilometres by cattle and goat farmers who were checking their stock and their fences. They saw his scrawled plea and an arrow pointing rescuers in his direction on a muddy road at the end of their driveway. Life Flight Rescue Helicopter Service, which was on standby in Charleville for flood evacuations, then launched a search and rescue mission for the man after he failed to arrive home last Friday night. This was, by the way, that structure that he was under for a couple of days. 60 kilometres worth of walking that he had done, very weak, and thankfully, because of that aerial support and thankfully because the farmers were out checking their own land, he is alive and with us today. Good stuff. Now, I've got to call out the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister today spent a bit of time in Perth, spent a bit of time in South Australia, couldn't be bothered going to any of these communities. It is a disgrace that the so-called leader of the nation, whom, win, lose or draw, will stand there on election night and say, I've been a Prime Minister for all Australians, is ignoring the very people who are in the middle of this situation. More rain in some parts has been recorded as a result of this flood event than the one that he was running around in, that being Tropical Cyclone Alfred. You can't help but conclude that the reason that it is nowhere near it is because there's no votes in it. Because there's no rolling coverage like there was when it was a more populous area in the southeast of Queensland. But he is the Prime Minister. He has the biggest microphone in the country and he has a travelling press pack with him. Prime Minister, if you truly seek to be a leader for all Australians, get off your arse and go to this part of Queensland. I know the plan is to pretend that it doesn't exist because it's good old-fashioned national or LNP or Katter country, but it's all Australia. This will have way more of an effect on a federal budget than what happened in the southeast, but of course all of that was just a way of changing the subject. And I've got plenty more to say about that, but it's a disgrace that he has not been there yet. If it was any other Prime Minister and this sort of situation was happening a little closer to town, well, we all know how the usual suspects would be going ballistic.